Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are tackling something that universally connects us all, and that is breaking bad habits. If you're a focused learner who is just completely exhausted from starting over time and time again, well, you're exactly in the right place. We're going to dismantle that frustrating, repetitive cycle using a highly structured three-step framework. We'll break down the exact mechanics of why we fail so often, and much more importantly, how we can finally succeed.
The source material points out a really profound truth right off the bat. There would be no sorrow left in the world. There would be no broken people. Think about that for a second. There is hardly anyone out there who actually loves their bad habits. In fact, it's often the thing we hate the absolute most about ourselves. If dropping these behaviors was actually easy, human suffering would practically vanish. The biggest fight we ever face isn't with the outside world. It's an internal battle.
So why is it so incredibly hard to just let them go? As the source explains, these habits, they kind of hollow us out from the inside. They make us feel hopelessly weak. We know exactly which habits have a grip on us, and we try again and again to change, only to fail. When you really sit down and reflect on that cycle, it can literally bring tears to your eyes. It's a deeply painful experience to feel trapped by your own actions. But, and here is the crucial point for today, there's absolutely no need to panic.
We've got a clear roadmap to get rid of even your worst habits. We'll look at the trap of bad habits, the power of Kaizen, shifting your inner identity, why we must replace and not just erase, and finally, redesigning your daily environment.
Let's dive straight into step one, the trap of bad habits, and exactly why we fail.
Habits form slowly over time through small daily actions. It's kind of like a tree growing deep, sprawling roots. A person gradually becomes enslaved without even realizing when those roots took hold. Yet, our strategy to defeat them is honestly almost comical. We grab a giant eraser and try to wipe them out in a single day. You try to make the habit vanish in one shot as if it never even existed. The source material notes that when this inevitably fails, we start feeling like the habit will never leave. So we just accept it and resign ourselves to failure. We are basically fighting months or years of deep conditioning with a completely unrealistic overnight expectation.
Which brings us to Section 2. The power of Kaizen and taking small steps to success.
Now, you might have heard of Kaizen. It's a brilliant Japanese concept meaning small, continuous improvements. And listen, this isn't just some self-help buzzword. This is the exact philosophy adopted by the world's biggest companies and most successful people. They do not make massive, sweeping structural decisions overnight. They just keep trying to fill in the gaps bit by bit. To change a deeply rooted habit, you absolutely must take deliberate, tiny steps rather than relying on sudden, shocking decisions.
We've all made this classic mistake, right? Waking up one Monday morning and declaring that you will instantly start exercising, get completely fit, and change your entire life overnight. Your body and mind will absolutely reject this system shock because they are just never ready for a massive change all at once. You didn't get hooked on your bad habit suddenly, so you can't quit it suddenly either. Instead, the Kaizen approach asks you to commit to drinking just one glass of water and maybe taking a short walk. That small change alone is totally enough for the day. It prevents the system shock that ultimately leads to failure.
Moving right along to Section 3, shifting your inner identity and changing your self-talk.
The source gives us this incredibly powerful quote. A person becomes what they repeatedly tell themselves. Think about the labels you use in your own head. Do you tell yourself, I am very lazy? Or, I am not disciplined. Or, maybe, I can never change. Because if you do, your mind starts accepting that as the ultimate truth. When you label yourself this way, all your physical and mental efforts will gradually fall apart. Why? Because your core identity is actively fighting against your goals. So, we have to deliberately flip the script on our internal self-talk. Instead of telling yourself, I am lazy, I can never change, you must pivot immediately to, I am changing now. I am making myself stronger. You have to accept that you can change and that no matter the cost, you must change. When you deliberately repeat these positive affirmations, the text notes that your body automatically gets trained to put in the effort required. You finally, once and for all, stop fighting yourself.
All right, Section 4. Replace, don't just erase. Why you need a new habit.
Here is a truly crucial insight. The human mind absolutely hates empty space. Many of us try to quit a bad habit by just saying, I won't use my phone today, or I won't eat junk food. But if you give your mind a blank instruction like that, it just won't comply. The source beautifully explains that when you tell your mind, don't do this, your mind immediately asks, well, why not? And if you don't have a solid answer, a new activity to point to, the mind wins the argument every single time, and the bad habit rushes right back in to fill the void. To win that argument, you must introduce a new, healthy habit. For example, instead of just trying to sleep less, you replace that time by actively waking up and going for a walk. If you want to cut down on your mobile phone use, you can't just sit there staring at the wall, right? You slot in reading a book for that exact block of time. If you want to stop staying up late, replace it with building a dedicated morning routine. Dealing with stress? Introduce walking or a quick meditation. The rule here is absolute. You cannot leave yourself empty. Introducing a new habit is literally the only way to automatically push out the old one.
And finally, Section 5, redesigning your daily environment to change your physical space.
We love to beat ourselves up over a lack of willpower. But honestly, often, the real problem is staring us right in the face in the form of environmental triggers. Trash in the corners, a scattered phone and headphones, an unmade bed, or even surrounding yourself with negative people. The second you walk into a messy room, your mind rushes straight toward distraction and comfort, simply because it's used to seeing these things. The environment naturally pushes your brain right back into its usual bad behaviors.
So, we have to physically hit the reset button on our surroundings. First up, clean the room and change the layout. Even just changing the direction you sleep in helps. Next, set things up in a completely fresh way. As the text powerfully asks, if there's comfort everywhere, how can discipline possibly hold? It can't. And finally, keep people with good habits close. If you're constantly hanging around the same messy people and bad thoughts, your motivation isn't going to survive. Look to learn from the daily routines of successful people instead.
It's really all about manipulating your space to make those new replacement habits incredibly easy to adopt. Want to read? Make sure books are directly in your line of sight. If you can't read a whole chapter, just read a few lines, but the book must physically be there. Want to wake up early? Keep your phone completely out of reach across the room and put a glass of water right by your bed. Want to quit junk food? Don't force yourself to rely on pure willpower when you walk past the shop. Instead, keep fresh, healthy food highly visible and accessible right at home. You are designing an environment where doing the right thing becomes the path of least resistance.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today, moving from the slow trap of bad habits to the steady power of Kaizen, shifting our internal identity, replacing behaviors, and finally redesigning our environment. I want to leave you with a single, highly empowering thought to mull over. What small change will you make today? Remember, this isn't about some dramatic overnight transformation. It's about one tiny, deliberate step. So step into your new identity right now. What is that one Kaizen-sized change going to be? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.